Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion, as you can tell from the title up there, continuing my trek through the episodes of Batman, the animated series. Now we are in episode 17 of the first season. This is from a teleplay by Martin Pascal. This, of course, is See No Evil. And I just want to get it out of the way real quick. If my recording of this episode, I sound a little that's because this is the second time I've had to record this one. The first time, I went to go push stop, and I'm like, really? It was not recording? Check the little camera roll thing, and then there's the thing. It's like, really? You're going to give me an error on this? Stupid stuff. But anyway, I'll get the little trivia out of the way first. The main thing here is that Bruce Timm felt the end sequence of this episode, which was geared around explosions, was done artistically poor, and they had the animation done 2 or 3 times just to get it right. And he even felt the final product was still awful, but they ran out of time and they had to air it. Now, personally, I didn't really think anything about the animation of this episode was actually done poorly. I mean, none of it was to the point where we're like, oh my god, this is the best animation of this show ever. Or like something super big to point out, like in the second half of Two-Face with the close-ups. But it was adequate. So, nothing special, nothing bad. So I think it's just Bruce showing a little bit of self-effacement when it comes to his team. And of course, this episode has a guest appearance by Michael Gross, Burt Gummer himself voicing the main villain, Lloyd Ventrix. Now, Ventrix is a character that his gimmick is that he can turn invisible. Not naturally, of course, and it's not like the Invisible Man where he takes a serum and he can't turn back. It is through a fabric that bends light. Kind of like how the Predator technology bends light, but he puts the material on and it bends the light around him to where he turns invisible. And of course he uses it for one way that most people think we would use invisibility technology, and that is to rob people. And Ventrix is a career criminal. Other than robbery, they don't mention if he's done anything else, but it wouldn't surprise me if he might have been involved with someone else that did something worse than robbery, but seems like he's mainly just a career thief, and he got busted a couple times, one of which cost him his marriage and access to his daughter, because, as it's shown in this episode, he cannot have any contact with his daughter. Which makes me wonder, how bad was the life of crime he was in to where he got busted to where he can't see her? Now, based on how we see Ventrix's behavior here in this episode, I'm guessing it's more than just his life of crime. That was just the cherry on top, but it was probably more how he was treating his ex. Based on the spiral he goes throughout this episode, I would say he's probably at least verbally abusive, if not spiraling down to be physically abusive. Which, probably combined with whoever he was hanging out with, is more than likely why he has a no contact order with both his ex and his child. Which I get. The one thing, though, I will not defend on this is it seems like the mother, his ex, has been talking a little bit of trash to the daughter. And that's based on something we're going to see at the end, which I'll get to once we get through the plot. Now, we see Ventrix at the beginning using his invisibility thing to talk with his daughter, which is a twofold thing. You're like, okay, you're breaking the order, so you're kind of a scumbag for that. But someone who is a parent, which I mentioned before, I'm not, but I kind of get the feeling for it here. But anyone who is a parent who's told they can't see their child, they can understand why Ventrix is doing this, especially since he's doing it under the guise of an imaginary friend of his daughter. And he finds out that they're going to be moving, which he does not like that, because it's another thing that's going to keep him from seeing her. So he breaks a restraining order that was in place, and goes to talk with his ex. Now, with the restraining order, I'm actually surprised she doesn't push it even further right here, where it's like, I'm going to get the police involved. Because nowadays, you know that would happen, but back in the 90s, I guess it wouldn't have been as commonplace, especially since they're in the city or whatnot, and Gotham's supposed to be a bad place. Maybe it wouldn't have worked, but it's just one of those observations I can't help but make. Now, Ventrix does not like this, so he's going to take a couple steps. Now, first, he's going to make a little bit more money. And we see him use a suit in action. And, of course, this is what brings him to the attention of Bruce Wayne, a.k.a. Batman, because he does a robbery at an event that Bruce is at where he's buying a watch. And Bruce jumps into action as Batman, has a little scuffle with Ventrix, which shows off the full array of the suit he's wearing and how it works. And of course, it also gets his mind thinking. So he slowly investigates and backtracks the material to its creator, which leads to Ventrix. There's a lot more specifics in there, but I'm just really heavily abridging that part of it because this is an episode I don't want to heavily spoil a lot of the specifics. Other than in the course of it, that we get an appearance by Lucien Fox, voiced by Brock Peters. So that's a nice little thing there. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot he was in this show. Well, Ventrix decides that he is going to take his daughter. He takes her, and everything's going good at first until he reveals to his daughter who he is, and then she totally turns on him. And it's based on what she says to him that I'm like, the mother's been talking crap about him. Which I get in a situation where one parent has primary custody and the other parent is not allowed to see them. Eventually, once the child gets to a certain age, they're going to start asking questions, and a good parent is going to have to answer those questions. But the thing is, you should answer those questions in age-appropriate ways to where, depending on what the other parent did, it doesn't fully alienate said parent. Now, in this situation where Ventrix was a thief, and based on my observations on how the things in the episode unfold, he was abusive in some manner, I can get her telling the child certain things that would lead to this reaction. However, once you step over a certain line with it, that is where you're doing parental alienation. The mother should be like, yeah, your father, he loved you. He loved me in a sort of way, but he had trouble controlling his emotions. Just leave it at that for when they're a child. When they get older, you can tell them the truth about what happened, and then at that point they're an adult. They can make their own decisions. If they want to talk with the person so they can fully form an opinion on that, they can. But coming out and saying it to when they're as a kid, that just doesn't work. Now, I'm not talking about hiding some of the stuff he did, but age appropriate. If you want to age appropriately say that he was abusive, you can, but you got to do it in a way that doesn't alienate it. Now, granted, we don't see the conversation, but I'm just going based on how the daughter reacts. There's also the possibility that maybe the daughter saw some of it, and that's why she's reacting this way, and also based on what her mother said, that is a possibility. They don't really give a year on a time frame, so it could have been many years since Ventrix was in their lives. It could have been only a couple. I'm guessing from the fact that he was probably in prison for a little bit, and how old the daughter is, that he was probably only like a couple years old when he went in. That's just my guess on it. There's a lot of ways you can speculate on it. Now, even with what I'm saying about that, a lot of that starts to go out the window with how Ventrix acts in this episode, because he crosses over some lines and basically goes, hey, if I can't be in her life, nobody can, type of situation. And it involves Batman chasing Ventrix, having to save the daughter, and Ventrix getting what's coming to him. Because Ventrix, he is the type of villain, and even beyond that, the type of person that feels he should be in control of everything, and everybody should kowtow to him. I mean, you can do a whole video essay on him as a character, his psychological state, and there are people who can. The very channel that inspired me to do this revisit actually did do a whole video on it, and that's how I remember this guy, because I actually forgot about this whole gimmick, even though, like I said, I started rewatching this show over a decade ago before. But watching it again, I'm like, yeah, this guy, no go. And of course, Batman does end up saving the day, and the episode ends on a nice little note, where she's talking to Batman through the window, and she's like, and the wife comes in like, who are you talking to, honey? Oh, just Batman. Oh, he's really there, Mommy. I know he is. And then Batman, looking down and all that. And of course, given what happened to Bruce as a kid, it's another one of those situations where when a child is involved, you really see that he does sympathize and empathize with the child, given what he went through at that young age. And stuff like that with Batman, that when the writers really do bring it out right, they bring it out right. And even if I had qualms about the animation at the end, that ending I think would probably erase it to a point. Now, Michael Gross's Ventrix does an excellent job, different type of voice than what you normally would expect for him. I mean, even if it's like me, where you've mainly seen him as Burt Gummer and then his little guest role in Law & Order SVU, definitely a different type of voice. That's why I didn't even know it was him at first. And you got Danny Goldman in here as Sam Gindel. He does a decent job there. If you don't know who that is, that's the guy from Young Frankenstein, who's like, "What about your grandfather's work, sir?" And like I said, Brooke Prugers as Fox, you got that, and then Elizabeth Moss as Kimmy and Jean Smart as Helen. They do a good job as well, rounding out the rest of the cast on this episode. And there's not really much else to say on this. And it's another one of those one-shot ones the writers did, although it's not the only time we would see villains throughout the DC animated universe that involve invisibility. Most famously, it'd come back later in Batman Beyond, but if we ever get to that, we'll get to that then. And that's all there is to say about this one. Next time, it is going to be one of the episodes I was looking forward to, because next time we get 2 Batmen for the price of 1. Yep, next time it's going to be Beware the Grey Ghost. Guest starring the one, the only, the legendary, late Adam West. Because remember, nobody messes with Adam Wee. Till then, everybody.